This is Spiro with Newsbud Spotlight.
And this is Sibel Edmonds with Newsbud.
Now, this is a follow-up to a recent video titled Sibel Edmonds Dissects the Turkey Coup Attempt, a CIA Gulen concocted dry run. Now, today we want to focus on PSYOPs, or psychological operations, meant to influence public opinion. Now, PSYOPs have been referred to as 90% of warfare, and they can be extremely effective when they are being promoted as fact by the mainstream media. Now, as this Turkey coup was developing, Sibel and I were both monitoring the situations, social media, in communication with each other. Sibel, you had pointed out some tweets that were floating around that the Turkish president, Erdogan, was trying to seek asylum in Germany. When you were asking, no one had any links to this. It was just being floated out there. At this point, can you tell me what popped in your head immediately when you saw these tweets?
Well, as soon as I saw that first tweet that came into my attention via Twitter, I started thinking about the anatomy of a coup. Because if you look at the coups around the world, especially CIA concocted, which basically entails all the coups that we have seen around the world, it's been military coups that are usually organized, managed, and implemented through NATO, U.S. military, and the CIA, of course. You see a particular pattern that is always present with these coups. For example, they are usually carried out during the evening hours, especially when people start going to bed. And then you also look at some of the psychological tactics that are implemented during these coups, for the success of these coups. And in this case, it relates to the leader of the target country in a coup. And that is either they try to take out the leader or falsely declare the leader dead, or, as it was the case here, telling people that the leader is on the run. He has abandoned his country. He's on the plane. He's trying to get an asylum in another country. Basically, he's deserting his nation. So when you put this kind of a message out, even when you start it as a rumor, you have tremendous effect on the public and the reaction and the controlling of the reaction that you're going to see from the people. Because when it gets to that point, when people assume that either their leader is dead or their leader is jailed or their leader is on the run, which is the worst kind, that's when they usually give up. They say, okay, it's a done deal. It's finished. And they kind of resort into despair and saying it's over and there is nothing we can do. That's exactly what this tweet sounded like. So that got me really into this mode of chasing this tweet, its origin, and try to find out who is putting it out, where it's originating, who's being pointed out as the source for this misinformation, pure fictional rumor. Because by finding the source, you then find the powers, the implementers of the coup, or those who actually plan the coup. That's how you start tracing the steps and going to the original source of the who wants this coup to take place, who's designing it, because those would be the same people who would be throwing around and putting out these types of false information in order to change the perspectives on the ground, in this case, especially in Turkey, to make the coup successful. And lo and behold, the origin for this rumor, this false information, it was no other than MSNBC and one of their producers, Kyle Griffin. Now, not only that, it goes even further than that, because they are saying, this is Kyle Griffin, MSNBC producer, that this is based on NBC report. We know MSNBC, NBC, they're the same entity, and that they have gotten their information, the fact that Erdogan is trying to get asylum right in Germany, from one of their top senior U.S. military source. That is NBC/MSNBC's frequently used official senior U.S. military source. Now, that's very telling, Spiro. I mean, you are looking at the Pentagon, a senior official, not a mid-level, not a low-level, but a senior official who is regularly a source, a common source for MSNBC and NBC, putting out this concocted big lie for psychological warfare tactic to benefit the coup and the coup implementers. Now, aside from this particular case with the Turkey coup attempt, it's very telling because these people, the mainstream media, MSNBC, NBC, obviously are working with sources who are there to plant misinformation. And what do? MSNBC and NBC, they take this information knowingly in many cases, and they sell it to the public. They sell it to you, they sell it to me, they sell it to the millions of Americans who tune in and they want to get their information, in quote, their news from these sources. This is why it's extremely important that not only we go about identifying the sources of misinformation, psychological warfare tactic, falsely planted information, that's just the first step to identify them, but then go a few steps further. We need to confront these people. We need to expose what they are doing. We have to catch them in the act. And then we have to expose them. We have to demand that they come, they issue retraction, and they provide explanation to the public that why they are disseminating false information.
Well, you're absolutely right. And the timing of this information being released, this rumor from this senior U.S. military source, could have heavily affected what was taking place during the coup. I mean, this was happening as the coup was taking place. We had not heard anything from the Turkish government. All we had heard at that point was that the coup implementers had taken over the press, the country. They claimed victory. And that's when this tweet came out. And we traced it back to its original source of NBC News. They have pulled down all their tweets. They have pulled down any articles that they had up. The next closest source, especially in the timeline, is this producer for MSNBC, Kyle Griffin. So his tweet is still up, and it's even being referenced. Multiple different news reports are citing this NBC News military source and even citing Kyle Griffin as the source himself. So yes, this is very troubling and damning information because it would appear whoever was leaking that information was in support of the coup. And if they're citing U.S. senior military sources, it's pretty obvious, in my opinion, what the intentions were of releasing this information. Now, NBC had pulled this information immediately. I have not seen any kind of a retraction from NBC other than pulling their story. But at this point, the damage had been done. It's already circulating everywhere, thousands of retweets, dozens of news articles all over the place. And I mean, this is a psychological operations 101 right there.
It's not only that, it goes way beyond that because you have to look at the pattern. I mean, in this case, we happened to be there following the tweets and we caught this one. But when you go back in the history, you see exactly what they did. It's the same MSNBC, it's the same NBC, it's the same people and the same exact sources who sold to the public all the WMD Iraq case, the concocted fake case of WMD and Saddam Hussein and Iraq. And they basically walked the nation into this war, garnering public support because the deep state, the establishment, they package it. Then they give it to their tentacles, like people like this Griffin, this pendejo Griffin, and all the other assholes with MSNBC, CNN, Fox. You just can't replace one brand with another brand. They give the package to them and they say, okay, guys, okay, butlers, now you go sell it to the public. And millions of people watching it saying, well, if it's NBC reporting it, and if their sources are senior, high-level military officials, it must be true. That's how it works, folks. Despite the fact that at that point, during that critical stage, Turkish social media was down, within 2-3 hours, we were able to establish that no, Erdogan was landing in Istanbul and he was delivering his speech. And the fact that everything put by U.S. mainstream media in support of the CIA concocted coup was false information. And this clearly illustrates the role of the mainstream media and, of course, the pseudo-alternative media in war, in misinformation, in propaganda for the war state and for the deep state. And that is what their role is, to serve their purposes. This is why we cannot just acknowledge this and say, oh yeah, they did it again, just like the WMD and Iraq, but we need to go a few steps further, people. So together, we are not as powerless as they want us to feel. They want us to feel like, okay, we know, but there is nothing we can do about this. We do have the power. So what can we do? We can confront them, we can challenge them, and we can expose this to many more millions who still are not aware of what is going on. They are still tuning in to these BS channels and just buying all the misinformation packaged by the deep state that is being delivered by these tentacles. So what can we do? We can go ahead and set our own trends. We don't need millions of people. Thousands of voices, our viewers here, cannot be ignored. And let's prove it, because this is something that we truly believe as Newsbud. So what do? We demand explanation from MSNBC and NBC, and we single out this guy who was the messenger in this case, Kyle Griffin, okay? That's one of the things we have to do, and we have to do it right away. And we can do it. And we have to make our demands go viral. Okay? We do have these social media channels. I know it's temporary. I know they're going to take away. I know they are censoring it. No doubt about it. But we can utilize the channels they are utilizing and beat them in their own damn game. So what do? Right away, share this video clip and everything. And we're going to put the links for you here as well. Share it all over the social media. Expose NBC, MSNBC, and Kyle Griffin, this producer with MSNBC. Put it on Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, okay? Just if there are discussion forums out there, disseminate this video clip, because this is also a call to action. Then what we want to do is we are establishing these hashtags, okay? Our hashtags are hashtag Confront MBC, hashtag Confront MSNBC, okay? This is going to be our dissemination. We the people, we are going to tweet and retweet this. Let's make it a trending tweet on the Twitter. Can we do it? You bet. It takes only a few thousand people. And before you know, we are going to be beating them in their own game. You can also go and post comments at NBC site, MSNBC website. Go to their discussion comment section and show their audience who they are watching, who they are receiving their information from. So I know we do lots of talk here, and we have analysis, but we want to go beyond talk. Here is one opportunity, and it's not complicated. It's not this huge task. It doesn't take much effort or energy. All we want to do is together, thousands of us, make this a trending tweet, demand explanation. They need to come publicly, retract, and also expose their senior U.S. military source, the one that they are getting other false information and selling it to you. You have the right, we have the right to know who these senior U.S. military officials are who are planting misinformation and going about marketing it, selling this misinformation to the public. You have the right to know, we have the right to know, so let's go demand it together. We can do it. Let's show them that we can. We are going to have other action plans too. Let's start with this little one, because it's not big, it's very doable. I mean, don't you agree, Spiro?
I agree completely. And this is just one example of how these operations work, and they do take place all the time. So, Newsbud, we're putting together this 24-hour call to action to expose the media psyops. You can do it, take part. We need everyone to pitch in on this and hold these people and these news organizations accountable. Well, that wraps up this episode of Newsbud Spotlight. We'll be back with more episodes soon.